Margaret had spent the last year moving through grief like a ghost in her own home. After Robert's passing, the once warm apartment felt cavernous, filled with echoes of a life now unreachable. On the day she found the photo, she'd ventured out for the first time in weeks, wandering aimlessly in town. The familiar streets had changed in her absence, as if the world had carried on without her. A small antique shop, one she couldn't recall noticing before, caught her eye. A faded closed sign hung in the window, but the door was slightly ajar. Something inside compelled her to step over the threshold. That evening, as she sifted through a drawer she'd meant to empty for months, a small faded photograph slid from between unopened envelopes. It was an image she hadn't seen before. Robert, younger, grinning at something beyond the frame. Turning it over, she found an inscription in his familiar looping script. "We were here. You laughed so hard I thought you'd never stop." The words unsettled her. She should have remembered. For the first time in months, she wasn't just grieving Robert's death. She was grieving the pieces of their life together that had faded before he was even gone. But the photo found her. It surfaced from wherever lost things go, reappearing not to remind her of what was missing, but of what had been real. Margaret set the photo on the table so she could see it each morning. Slowly she began searching through old albums, not to mourn but to reclaim. Months later, when the local library announced a project, a public archive of photos and memories from long-time residents, Margaret was the first to volunteer. One afternoon, while reviewing a stack of donated photographs, she paused at an image of a familiar storefront, the antique shop from that day. The picture was decades old, details slightly blurred, but the ornate wooden box was unmistakable on the shop counter. Margaret stared a long time, her fingertips grazing its surface. Some things, she thought, had a way of finding their way back.